So let's talk more about services. I think there's this um era, or like air, like not era, like
Mist.
what's the word I'm looking for? This
I don't know where you're
um
headed.
oh, do you know what I'm saying?
There's
Like
something in the air. There's a vibe.
there's
There's
some
energies.
sure. I mean, that's not the word I'm going for, but
There's a
yes.
smell.
There's something in the air. I don't know. But there's something in the air that I feel like there's a lot of people
Yeah.
questioning everything about themselves and their business. And I, if I were to just put a pin on why I think this is happening, um, I don't know if you've realized, but we've been in a global pandemic for 2 years, and potentially we're going into a world war. I'm not talking about that today,
But those are
but
facts.
it does make you a little uneasy, and it does make you question some things. And because of that, I've seen a lot of service providers consider a
Mhm.
pivot. They're like considering, what if I do this? What if I do that? What if I change this about myself? What if I add this stream of revenue to my business? What could happen? What will
Well, because
happen?
they've hit the time
Um,
and income ceiling. And
yeah, that's
we've
what I'm
talked
feeling
about the levers that
about.
you can pull to adjust those, but some of you are a little bit further down this mental rabbit hole, right? Of like it's still
Mhm.
drastically entertaining alternative ideas. And I think a lot of you who have come, especially into this space, because it is so full of marketing conversations and marketing
Yeah.
strategy, that stuff feels sexy and fun. And I get the allure. I do. And I also want to really have a conversation with you about facts and reality,
Hmm.
and the facts and
Hmm.
reality starting with what you actually want.
Hmm. Yeah. What do you want? What are you looking for? And I think it's important that instead of looking around to figure out what you want, this is where it's really critical that you shut things off. Like, I remember Emily and I looked at each other. Uh, this was a couple of years ago, but we were like, what would happen if we just like stopped
Yeah.
looking around? Like, we just like really ignored
Hmm.
everything, and what would happen? Um, but I think so much of creating that self reflection opportunity where you're not following as many businesses like you, where you're not engaging with as many thought leaders, but really kind of narrowing down who you let into your thoughts. Um, and when that happened, it became a lot more clear of, I am still always open to new
Yeah.
ideas, and I will still see things and be like, "Ooh, I wonder if I like try that on, what it would be like." But because we've created a more filtered
Hmm.
worldview, I feel like you and I are so much better now at maybe entertaining something, but like changing our mind more quickly, or like making an adjustment
Well,
to
it's
make
like what I was
our
talking
own.
about with the books of like you take the idea in, and then the first thing it has to do is run through your own filter first. And
Yeah.
that's no different from not only taking in business and marketing strategies, but also like truly deciding the type of business you want to run, how you want to show up every day, what you want to be doing every day. And I feel like there's been this conversation going on. We aren't the first ones to talk about it. You've heard it before. It's not new. But it's a little bit of the like shamey guilt trip of service providers feeling bad for still doing service work.
Yeah,
Like,
why?
what do you mean you haven't pivoted to sell to 8 million people instead? Like that's like the next phase. That's after you've been doing this for a certain amount of time and you've hit the ceiling. That's like your obvious next step. And there's just this big missed opportunity.
It's just
It's not
not, though.
though.
It's just not. It's just not. It's what I want people to understand. And if you want to have this conversation with us, happy send us a DM. I would love to figure it out for you, because I do think there's
Yes,
nuances.
with everything.
But with everything, but if you're considering like making changes, what I don't think most people realize is any change in product, regardless of what the product is, like a service, a program, a course, a digital thing, like regardless of the deliverable, any change in product dramatically affects your business, and enough variation away from your current
Yeah.
offer, and all of a sudden you are building a new
Yeah.
business.
Yeah.
And you may not have a new name, you may not have a new website, you may not have a new social media account, but the uphill battle you will
Hmm.
face, because it's so dramatically far away from where you're at
Yeah.
right now, is that you have to start over in a lot of ways. And I think a lot of people think there's a much smoother transition, and there's just
There,
not for any
there just
product
isn't.
changes.
Because the reality being, especially, if you've built a service-based business where you have developed an expertise in an arena and you have a done for you service, right? Where you
Mhm.
are doing the things for the client, you're implementing the work for the client, and you're working really intimately one-on-one with people. The the problem is when you hit the time and ceiling capacity, you think that doing the work is the time suck. And that if you just
Right.
don't do the work for as many people or don't do as much work for the clients, then obviously then you should scale. And I understand that concept. Like part of you doing the work
Yeah.
is the time suck. I'm not arguing with you there, but we're looking at the wrong solution to the actual problem. And so what happens is like what Abby's talking about is like, okay, if we're going to sit here and say, you know what, I'm tired of doing bookkeeping. I'm tired of doing all of the bookkeeping for the clients. I would rather just teach people how to do their own books. The people who've already hired you to do their books, they they don't want to do their own books. That's why they hired you. And so that what
Mhm.
happens is what we're saying is an entirely new different business is built, an entirely new audience is having to be talked to and be served and now be nurtured in a different way. And so all of the things that have worked for sometimes years for you that you've built up, when those could have been pivoted slightly to reignite and refine, we're now starting from scratch over here.
Ugh,
Ask us how we
it's
know. Because we did
it's just
this.
oh, we have done this. We've done it a couple of times actually, and I feel like we had to learn our lesson
This is
multiple
one of the
times.
biggest, like, oh my gosh, I want to drill in this lesson to so many service providers because, and I've mentioned this before a little bit in a couple different capacities on this show, but yes, we've made this pivot multiple times, but the initial one is what matters the most because it's the change from nope, we're not doing this, meaning the done for you
Oh yeah.
services, to we're doing this. And then once we pivoted to over here, there were different pivots to continue that to keep going. What I'm not saying is that you won't ever pivot. What I'm not saying is that
Right.
there will never be tweaks that you need to make to your pricing or your client or your offer or your model. What I am saying is there's a difference between like this, like a small turn, and a dramatic rebuild. There is a difference.
Yeah.